There are only a handful of games which have had a grip on society as Pokemon GO did for that 1 week in July 2016. On the top of my mind, only Clash Royale, Clash of Clans and Subway Surfers appear, and all three probably haven't hit the player count record established by Pokemon GO at that point. It's been almost 8 years of Pokemon GO. Gosh, does it sound weird when I say it out loud? Feels like it was only 3 summers ago. I still play the game on a pretty regular basis. I like to pop it up and play for like a couple of minutes when I'm on the bus. Really chill experience, to be honest. And to honor its long-lasting presence and to fulfill a long overdue promise I made to myself almost 2 years ago, I will be diving in and covering this massive Pokemon GO Iceberg. The link for it is in the description below, of course, in order to become the most knowledgeable Pokemon trainer on the mobile device. So, let's do this! Pikachu has a ton of costumes in Pokemon GO, mostly from events, but this entry only says hats, so gotta follow the rules. I've seen a lot of websites that count some costumes as hats, but I'm not gonna do that. I have to see a literal hat, not some type of One Piece PJs. Those are not hats, okay? Here are all the hats. Straw Hat, Red Party Hat, Spring Hat, Safari Hat, Charizard Hat, Umbreon Hat, Rayquaza Hat, Lucario Hat, Explorer Hat, Holiday Pikachu. The bow ties count as hats? Screw it. Popstar Hat, Meloetta Hat, Halloween Hat, Festive Hat, Party Hat, Ash Hat, Witch Hat, Summer Hat, Fragment Hat, Flower Crown Hat, Detective Hat, Winter Hat, World Cup Hat, and New Year Hat. I'm gonna pass out. Community days are events that happen each month, in which a certain Pokemon has a higher spawn rate than normal. The event only runs for 6 hours from 11 AM to 5 PM local time, so you don't have to deal with bullshit time zones. That's cool. Depending on which team you've picked, Team Mystic led by Blanche, Team Instinct led by Spark, or Team Valor led by Candela, you'll be greeted with one of these fine people when you press the praise button on one of your Pokemon. Afterwards, a pop-up will show your Pokemon's attack, defense and HP, and to make it simple for you, 1 star bad, 3 star good. If all the bars are filled up, you'll get 3 stars with a red pinkish background. Well, how do you get those 3 pinkish stars, you may ask? Mostly luck, or purifying shadow Pokemon. That's mostly it. The Pokemon spawns in Pokemon GO are localized. This means depending on where you live, you'll get a specific Pokemon. So let's say you are in the city. There's a high chance for you to find fire and electric Pokemon. Important landmarks in cities are also a great spot for finding dragon and fairy type Pokemon, but if you're in a forest, you'll likely encounter grass and bug types. These spawns are not limited only to these types of zones. The hemisphere in which you live is also a deciding factor in a Pokemon spawn. For example, now during winter, in the northern hemisphere, you'll encounter more Pokemon appropriate for winter, whilst right now, the southern hemisphere is experiencing its summer months. So basically, if you want to catch them all, you're gonna have to do a little bit of traveling. The Spotlight Hour is kinda similar to the Community Day, in the regard that it features a specific Pokemon with a higher spawn rate, but what differentiates this event from the Community Day is that this one takes place once a week, on Tuesdays, between 6 and 7 PM, again, local time. And it also features different rewards. In a week you might get double catch XP, or double catch Stardust, or even double catch candies. Pokemon Home is a cloud service for the Nintendo Switch and for mobile devices, on which you can trade your Pokemon in different games. In the case of Pokemon GO, you can trade your Pokemon to Pokemon Sword and Shield. But there are a couple of requirements and rules. Before even you begin to think about trading, your Pokemon GO account must have at least level 40, your GO transporter must have enough energy, you start with 10k and you get 60 per hour and you need a full charge to transport. So if you want to transport another Pokemon to your home application, you'll have to wait a whole week to get enough energy. You also need to have caught that same Pokemon on Sword and Shield already, so you cannot use Pokemon GO as a means of filling up your Pokédex. Mega Evolutions, Shadow Pokemon and unique costumes also cannot be transferred. Certain special Pokemon cannot be transferred from Pokemon GO to Pokemon Home, and lastly, you can also wave goodbye to the Pokemon you sent to the app, because you cannot return them to Pokemon GO. It's like sending it to the Shadow Realm. If your brother tries to play a prank on you by sending away your shiny Charizard, then I think you should be legally allowed to give him a proper beating, you know, to teach him a valuable life lesson. When you open up Snapshot mode with any of your Pokemon in your collection or set as a body, you can take pictures of that Pokemon. When you review those said images, there is a chance that you'll find a Smeargle or a special Pikachu photobombing. When you close the app, that old photobomber will appear and allow you to catch it. If you get unlucky and do not find any photobombers, you can try it again and again till you find one. A thing that helps with that is turning off the AR mode. Pokemon GO was made by a company called Niantic. It originally was called Niantic Labs when it was under the operation of Google, but in 2015 it became an independent company and produced the hit known as Pokemon GO. In the main series, a critical catch just boosts your catching chances by a percentage, depending on the Pokemon that you're trying to get. But in Pokemon GO, if you get a critical catch, there is no way for the Pokemon to escape. How do you get a critical catch? You may ask? Luck. I see this 1% floating around a lot, but it's mostly at random. At least it has a 100% success rate, so that's cool. Pokemon nests are specific areas in which a certain Pokemon has an increased chance of appearing. Some sites show the activity of nests and where they are. That's important because the nests migrate. They don't spend all the time in the same place. You don't get free Magikarp for life or some shit. No max IV Gyarados for you, good sir. When you start a new adventure on Pokemon Go, you are faced with the hardest choice a trainer could have: picking their starters. But you can actually avoid getting one of the 3 Kanto starters and capturing a Pikachu instead. To do this, you have to walk away from your starters. If they reappear, just walk away again. You have to do this 3 times, and the 4th time a Pikachu will appear, which allows you to catch it. Ever since rainbows were discovered in Pokemon Go, people have been speculating if they have an impact on the game. But the reality is that it's just a cool visual feature. It has absolutely no impact on Pokemon spawns or anything related to gameplay. The rainbows just appear randomly behind gyms or Pokestops or when you're trying to catch a Pokemon, which is pretty cool, but nothing more than that. The Battle League is a place where you can fight other Pokemon Go trainers and get rewards for doing so, just like in the last seasons of the anime. Really good, by the way. There are different classes or leagues if you prefer. There is the Great League, in which you can use Pokemon to a maximum of 1500 combat power, the Ultra League with a max combat power of 2500, and lastly the Master League with a max CP of nothing. You can play your matches in a series of 5. Depending on how many of those 5 matches you win, you'll get different rewards. When you finish those matches, depending on how well you perform, your rank and rating will go up or down. I put them both in the same discussion because they are both YouTubers and there was some bullshit that happened to both of their channels, so I thought it would fit for them to be together here. So, Trainer Tips, also known as Nicholas Oizen, I think, I'm sorry if I butchered it, and Mystic7, also known as Braden Martin, are basically the biggest Pokemon Go YouTubers. Their channels are really cool and they post a lot of cool Pokemon Go videos, and that bullshit that I mentioned earlier is that their channels got wrongfully deleted for sexual content and child pornography, but they got reinstated after a little time. But still, imagine what a scare they got when they woke up with their channels just gone. It was because they had CP in the title, which means combat power in Pokemon, so that's a clear indication that the review and termination were not by an actual human, but by a machine that just saw CP and went, hey, that's not allowed. Well, at least it was a couple of years ago, and now YouTubers don't have to worry about their channels or videos being taken down for the wrong reasons. Right? Regional exclusives are a group of Pokemon which are exclusive for certain regions of the world. For example, Mr. Mime to Europe. I fucking hate this guy. Back in 2016, this fucker would constantly appear everywhere for me. Another example is Seviper to both Americas and Africa. There are plenty more, 39 in total. But don't worry, you don't have to travel to Fiji or New Zealand to find a Relicanth, because during certain events, these regional Pokemon migrate to the different regions or become globally obtainable. In Pokemon Go, there are several medals that you can get. It's like badges for Boy Scouts. You have medals for becoming best friends with a couple of people, catching X Pokemon out of a certain type, multiplying it by every type, and so on. But some medals won't be shown to you only until you've started working on them, and that's where hidden medals come from. And with that, we've reached the end of the first level. Still holding up? I surely hope so, because we still have a long way to go. So I should probably stop yapping about random nonsense and start off explaining the second layer. Let's do it. The Pokemon Go Plus is a device that allows you, the player, to capture Pokemon and spin Pokestops without using your phone. You just simply connect it to your device using Bluetooth. When approaching a Pokestop, the device will begin to blink blue and vibrate. By touching the button on the Plus, you'll initiate a search for items at that Pokestop. For a Pokemon, it's a bit different. The device will blink green if you encounter a Pokemon you already have, and yellow if it's a new one for your Pokédex. Pressing the button will result in a capturing attempt, and the device will blink blue. If the Pokemon has been caught, then the device will flash a rainbow, and if the Pokemon escaped, the device will flash red. This device is fucking amazing, says me without one, but I'll get one. It's not that expensive, it's around 9 Big Macs at most. To become lucky friends with another trainer, you'll have to be best friends and trade with them. There's a 5% chance to become lucky friends for that trade, and afterwards, your status will return to best friends. This is important because that lucky trade will result in a lucky Pokemon. And get this, a lucky Pokemon has a minimum IV of 12, 12, 12, and costs half as much Stardust to power up. This is so fucking amazing. There's only one issue. You need friends. The legacy moves are fast and charged moves that have been deleted from Pokemon Go, but they're still known by Pokemon that were caught before the moves got removed. There are also event legacy moves, which are moves that Pokemon can only learn during events, like for instance Community Day, but there is an item called the Elite TM. What sets this item apart from normal TM? Well, normal TMs can teach a Pokemon a move that is active right now and any Pokemon can learn, whilst the Elite TM can teach a Pokemon any move from their move pool, including, you guessed it, legacy moves. A couple of years ago, if I recall correctly, Pokemon Go introduced a new feature that lets players level 20 and above power up Pokestops and gyms by simply scanning them. You've probably seen that pop-up appear after spinning a Pokestop that asks you, under the form of field research, to scan a Pokestop in order to get information about it. So yeah, Free manual labor. Spoofing in Pokemon GO is changing your location using a VPN in order to catch Pokemon from different locations and regional exclusives, thus breaking the region barrier. From my experience, I remember it being quite popular back in 2017. That's probably because that's when the game was still riding its popularity wave. Another instance of this action being really popular is the start of quarantine, where you couldn't leave your house, so people resorted to spoofing. Also, so you don't get confused, this activity is forbidden by the Pokemon GO TOS, so you can get banned for doing it. EX raids are special invitation-only raids that happen at EX gyms. That invitation comes under an EX raid pass or an invitation from a friend, but if you get in, you'll have an opportunity to catch some of the most sought-after Pokemon, like Deoxys or Mewtwo. How do you know if a gym is eligible for an EX raid? Well, it should say in the top right, so you cannot miss it. There are certain Pokemon that have increased shiny rates, making them easier to find. You can find lists online with the currently boosted shinies, which are changing on a daily basis. Pokemon Master Holly is another big Pokemon GO YouTuber. There was a bit of controversy with her a couple of years ago. She created an OnlyFans and some people got angry and thought that she was irresponsible because her YouTube content was Pokemon, whose audience is mostly kids. We all know the infamous pop-up that appears even when we're walking. It's really fucking annoying. So, as we all know, the evolutions in Pokemon GO are random, but if you name your Eevee Rainer, Sparky or Pyro before you evolve it, you'll definitely give Vaporeon, Jolteon, respectively Flareon. But, from what I know, it only works once with each name. Also, you might wonder why these names? Well, they are references to the Eevee brothers from the 40th episode of the anime, the Battling Eevee Brothers. Melton, the mythical Pokemon that you can only obtain in Pokemon GO, had been announced through a 2-minute animated short back in September of 2018. In that video, Professor Willow and Professor Oak discussed a new Pokemon that, when caught, would turn into a Ditto. Mr. Oak said that he read about that Pokemon in an ancient text and that its name was Melton. That's about it. Reversal was a Pokemon GO YouTuber, now he's just a PokeTuber. He quit Pokemon GO because of bad development, because Niantic did not listen to the community, because Niantic made empty promises, him saying actions speak louder than words, and other stuff like that. And I can empathize a lot with this guy, putting this much work and time into a game, but the lack of communication and bad decision making from the developers make you not enjoy that game anymore. It's frustrating. I couldn't claim in that type of love-hate relationship with a game that I really love, and it's for the same reasons. If you want to know what game I'm talking about, it's DBD. Again, I feel bad for him, because he had to quit the game, but I see that he's doing well on his YouTube and Twitch, so huge props to that guy. The Sylph Road is one of, if not the most in-depth Pokemon GO site. There is everything from Pokemon nests to shiny rates and a lot more. There's every piece of information you'll ever need about playing Pokemon GO. In the main series, a critical catch just boosts your catching chance by a percentage. Wait, I've said that before. This layer felt pretty similar in size to the first one. I also knew a pretty handful of this before researching, so I'll pat myself on the back for that. But now we're ready to face level 3, which along with level 4 are the longest levels of this whole iceberg. So, let's get started. The Gyarados loading screen is the first ever loading screen that was present in Pokemon GO. Most of you probably recognize it. It features a trainer walking around facing a giant Gyarados with a text telling you to be aware of your surroundings placed below. Just as we've previously stated with Trainer, Sparky and Pyro, there are names that when bestowed upon an Eevee decide its evolution. In the case of these two, Sakura is used for Espeon and Tamao is used for Umbreon. These two names were also inspired by the anime, based on the two sisters who possess each their respective evolution, from the 26th episode of the 4th season of the anime, titled Troubles Brewing. A couple of years ago, in a Halloween event, the Lavender Town team would play during the nighttime, giving the event and the game a more spooky note. This refers to the dynamic weather feature in Pokemon GO, where the weather outside would be mirrored in the mobile game, but sometimes, or at least in the beginning it was, certain places were wrongly coded or some shit, and it'd get extreme weather pretty often, even though the weather outside was perfectly walkable with no issues. This takes away from some benefits of the weather system, like the bonus Stardust, increased type spawns, and Pokemon in general even spawn less during extreme weather, as stated in the pop-up. An artist named Payoki made a fan-made drawing of each team in Pokemon GO and gave each one of them a motto. This one, No Shelter from the Storm, is the one for Team Instinct. Pokemon GO has multiple biomes for different kinds of Pokemon types. This one refers to the location in the main franchise, Mount Moon, and the biome includes certain Pokemon that are mostly found there, like Clefairy, Phanpy, and Larvitar. At the start of 2020, Pokemon GO had a little event where this cute party hat wearing Wurmple was the mascot. You could catch it during the event and gained a little bit of traction with the fans because of its cute design. As we all know, Pokemon GO has 3 teams at its disposal for every player to choose: Team Instinct, Team Valor, and Team Mystic. But what some people might not know is that you can go through the game without choosing to be a part of any team, which would of course limit some aspects of your game, like not participating in raids or not having the appraisal system. The people who choose not to be a part of any team, a small but loud part of the community, have concocted their own team. Team Harmony, based on the legendary Pokemon Lugia. This is an interesting feature in Pokemon GO. If you level up your friendship with a buddy enough, you'll unlock a feature called Catch Assist that comes into play sometimes while trying to catch a Pokemon. If the wild Pokemon performs an attack, when you throw your ball at it, the ball would bounce back, but it wouldn't end up as a failed throw, because out of the bottom left of the screen, your buddy's hand or head or something would appear and throw the ball back at the Pokemon, hitting an excellent throw. This entry was made in regards to the horniness in the fandom. From the moment Professor Willow got revealed, some people in the franchise have been dying after him, calling him a silver fox, which means a hot middle-aged man with white or grey hair. There are certain websites and apps that display the current location of Pokemon around the world, making everything easier for trainers because they know where to find which Pokemon in their area. And because of that, just like spoofing, this activity can get you in trouble with your account. Pretty interesting, this one. There is this fan theory that parking lots have increased spawns than normal locations, like way increased, and there are a ton of people who have tried this and were surprised for it to be true, finding lots and lots of Pokemon in just ordinary parking lots. IVs, or individual values, are hidden talents and powers of each different Pokemon. Some may have better attack power, others speed. The rabbit hole is pretty deep. One of the first times you could calculate it was by talking to a trainer in Pokemon X. You can go through the rabbit hole yourselves and learn more about them on the internet because it's a lot of shit, but they're basically each Pokemon's hidden power, and they differentiate in their importance and power. So that's why there are calculators online where you input different aspects of your Pokemon, like combat power and attack, and you'll get the number which determines how good your Pokemon's IV is. So basically, people have found out that the stats and combat power of wild Pokemon are random if you're under level 30 as a trainer. Level 30 is the cap. Afterwards, like for example, if you're playing with a friend or something, if you both go to catch the same Pokemon, it will have the same combat power for the both of you, because you're both past the set limit of random stats. This is an entry which I would have personally placed higher, maybe even first layer. I consider that this fact is pretty well known. If you're throwing curveballs, the chances are higher of catching, like everyone does that. Everyone throws curveballs. There even is a visual representation when doing it. Stars and sparkles are coming out, signifying that it's better to do it that way. And almost every time you throw a simple ball, the Pokemon immediately breaks out. The old mechanic was pretty peculiar. When gyms were first introduced, there wasn't a daily cap, and you wouldn't have to wait for your Pokemon to be beaten out of a gym to collect your coins. You could go and collect coins every 21 hours if your Pokemon was still at the gym. You'd get 10 coins for that, and you'd have a limit of 10 gyms you could have a Pokemon in, so you could get 100 coins every day. But I swear it got reversed. It made farming coins way too competitive and unfair to the ones that were at the top and kept collecting. Plus, you'd have to walk a lot from each gym to the next to collect your daily coins. Having a Pokemon in 10 different gyms meant that there had to be a pretty significant distance altogether between them. Plus, cheaters with spoofers and shit would have had a field day with this feature because they wouldn't have to walk. They just press a button and go from one gym to another. When you go for an appraisal, it would also take into account the size of your Pokemon. If your Pokemon was a larger size than usual, it would say that the Pokemon's name or nickname if you set him on, and say that it was huge. It of course became a meme and people made the most out of it by naming their Pokemon Dick or Schlong or Penis or any variation of that. Some normal-minded people name their Pokemon Love, so it's great to know that not everyone thinks of penis jokes all the time. Brandon 10 was the biggest Pokemon GO player. He was on the #1 spot, the pedestal. He was always grinding for that game, but then controversy surfaced that he broke the TOS multiple times with the ways he was playing the game, and that he offered paid services for players, earning money for grinding the game on their accounts. This was forbidden, and when Pokemon GO caught wind of it, they banned him from the game. Being the first large event of the game, its first annual celebration, after its huge success here, Niantic was overwhelmed by a ton of factors, and the event was categorized by many as a disaster. From the diverse technical issues like server crashes and network congestion, to the cellular networks in this vicinity not being able to handle the high capacity, from the huge volume of players present, resulting of course in poor network connection, to the organizers not being the best at explaining the issues and providing answers and explanations, to the event not delivering on certain promises regarding in-game rewards and such. And when some players went to get refunds, the whole process was really exhausting. So yeah, not that great. But they fortunately learned from it and got the following events better put together. Shadow bans were introduced behind the scenes by Niantic in order to discourage players from cheating. They make players who use third-party sites or spoofing face multiple limitations, like encountering only common Pokemon and reduced spawn rates in general. This feature is usually applied with a temporary time limit in order to only discourage cheating and make players enjoy the game within its approved TOS. I've talked about this during the first layer entry, Pokemon Nest. It basically means that the nest migrates so you won't always have the same Pokemon at your disposal at a set location. Pokemon Go used to have a different way of catching wild Pokemon, this thing called a 3-step tracker. It would showcase different Pokemon with 1, 2 or 3 footsteps next to them. 1 footstep means you are close to them, whilst 3 means that you are far away. This made it so that the hunting of Pokemon felt more like a hunt, because you had to narrow down where they were, and that's the reason why some people are nostalgic towards this mostly forgotten feature. Before it was acquired by T-Mobile in 2020, Sprint was its independent communication service for mobile devices. In 2017, they had a brilliant idea to partner up with Pokemon Go and release the only Pokemon Go partner program. It was huge. Players would basically gather points for playing the game and doing basically quests, and by stacking up points they could get various prizes which were really fucking amazing, like brand new phones or gadgets or even consoles. It was insane. The biggest prize acquired by a player was a trip to Japan during a special Pikachu event, the trip costing around $6,500. Like I said, prices were insane. The Rare Candy XL is a special type of candy that has a pretty interesting type of usability. You can use it after you reach level 31, and they are used to level Pokemon after they get to level 40, meaning over 3000 combat power. You can farm them through raids, burning them as you level up yourself, or by trading 100 of the Pokemon's normal candies to one XL candy, so it takes time to level up. Again, one which I would have added a bit higher up, it refers to the search menu for Pokemon. You can use various criteria in order to find specific Pokemon you own, like if they'd hatch from an egg, if they were shiny, if you could evolve them, if they were a certain type. Tons and tons of criteria. Very useful for everyone, especially if you're constantly facing maximum Pokemon storage reached and you're too cheap to spend money on the game to expand it. When you go to appraise a Pokemon, your team leader will provide feedback on that Pokemon's IV using different terms. The community came up with this way of spelling to grade the IV of a certain Pokemon quickly without having to put the extra detail. Basically, to summarize it, the leaders will say the following. For 1 star, this indicates that the Pokemon has relatively low IVs and its potential is not very high. For 2 stars, this suggests the Pokemon has moderate IVs and there is room for improvement, but is not exceptional. For 3 stars, Pokemon with 3 stars have good IVs and are considered above average in terms of their potential. Lastly, for 4 stars, this is the highest appraisal, indicating that the Pokemon has excellent IVs and its potential is near the maximum. For a long time, Lucky Eggs had kind of run their course at level 40 because they are used to give you double XP for half an hour, but level 40 used to be the maximum level you could reach as a trainer, so using them afterwards would only be so that you'd free up space in your inventory. Some people would just dump them, but others still used them to grind XP in the hopes that one day the level cap would go up, and in December 2020, Niantic granted them that wish and increased the cap to level 50. We're ending this layer on a pretty high note. This was a very important topic a couple of years ago. Niantic faced multiple trespassing lawsuits because they placed Pokestops on private property. I personally still know a Pokestop in my area that I think is a private property, not 100% certain, but more than like 50. It was a mess. They also placed Pokestops in religious landmarks, which was illegal for trespassing and using your phone and stuff like that in some countries, like Russia for example. A player played Pokemon Go in a Russian church a couple of years ago and got in trouble for it, and I completely understand why. Those are important places for a lot of people. I'm not trying to get religious in Pokemon GO Iceberg, but a church is not a place to play Pokemon Go in. That's all I'm gonna say. Niantic settled the trespassing lawsuits in 2017, paying settlements and implementing measures to address multiple concerns. This layer features some pretty fascinating entries, some still pretty known, but we're coming closer to the middle of the iceberg and entering more and more uncharted territory. On April 1st, 2014, Google released a joke video as an April Fool's joke. The video contained a fictional product called Google Maps Pokemon Challenge, but that thing got a ton, and I mean a ton, of positive responses and people wanted that to be a reality. So basically, a thrown around joke was the spark that started a global phenomenon. Life is so fucking weird and unexpected, holy shit. During certain events, Pokemon Go sends out weirdly phrased push notifications to remind the players of the current event, and some can get pretty weird. They probably started because of all the memes with the Duolingo ones. We still have some evolutions to go through. This entry refers to Linia and Rhea. If you name your Eevee Linia, it will evolve into a Leafeon, and if you name it Rhea, it will evolve into a Glaceon. These chosen names are based on the trainers from the Eevee Z side quest in Pokemon Sun and Moon. This is also in regards to what I've said previously about the event, that it was pretty much a disaster. But what this entry adds to the overall mess is that some people speculated that all those issues were done on purpose by Niantic to manipulate certain aspects of the event, including the goal. I don't think Niantic is some type of mastermind or that it had a need to do stuff like that to attract attention or something, given Pokemon Go's huge pull back in the day. The most significant thing I found in regards to this entry is this Reddit post. Some people say that they think it would have been better if, after becoming best buddies to Pokemon, the walking distance for a candy should be halved. I'm guessing this essentially refers to a glitch where a Pokemon body starts walking off and does not return. I don't know why I have this vivid memory of it happening to me once. I don't know if I'm schizophrenic, but I remember once my Bulbasaur body did something like this. This not only in regards to incense, but spawns in general, because if you're going with a car, in the passenger seat must I mention, and you're going past like 40 kilometers per hour, maybe less, Pokemon just stop spawning. The game is not built for that, I don't know why, and when you're slowing down, they'll start spawning again, and you'll be greeted with that pop-up again. So, Pokemon GO is pretty useless sometimes when you're in a car. We've now completed the evolution cycle. This is the last name for an evolution. It's Hira for Sylveon. It's a reference to another trainer from the same quest in Silent Moon where Lina and Rhea were. This is the infamous Pokemon GO song that took the world by storm in 2016. You just have to know it. That is if you're not the target audience of the average dopamine inducing TikTok. When you place a Wailord into a gym, because of its sheer size, it will be placed separately from all the other Pokemon. Some people took an interest in the mental impact this would have on our beloved Pokemon, or old Wailord. The old gyms in Pokemon GO were pretty different. There were 10 spots at a single gym, in comparison to now 6. You will fight the gym in order of strength, whilst now there is a first in first out system. The gyms used to have a prestige system, where players could train in order to increase the strength of that certain gym and produce more slots for it, the maximum being 10 as I stated before, and in order to take control of a gym you had to lower its prestige. Frustration is a charge move that is present with every Shadow Pokemon when caught, and the only way to change it is by purifying the Pokemon first. You cannot use TMs or anything, except for when there are certain special events and you are allowed to use TMs to do that, so keep an eye on those if you don't want to purify the Pokemon or don't have enough candy on them. This is a tool which can be used by players to help Niantic with placing Pokestops or gyms in points of interest. You can use it to suggest relevant and culturally significant places, submit photos and add even descriptions to them, and then send them for review using that tool. I think it particularly helps with smaller regions of the world where it's harder for Niantic to place many Pokestops or gyms due to a lack of knowledge regarding those areas. I think it's a very useful and thought out tool, really nice on Niantic's part. It makes their job easier by having people help them, and in return the players can get new Pokestops and gyms. A win-win situation for both parties. If you are to go by the notebook, technically, Pokemon GO is still in beta, because to this day, its version doesn't begin with a 1. It has to begin with at least 1 to be considered out of beta, the current version being 0.299.0, so yeah, highest grossing beta game on the mobile device probably. The 2016 Halloween event was the first ever event in Pokemon GO, and it paved the way for many more to come. The event offered increased spawn rates for ghost types, body candy bonus, double candy for every Pokemon caught, hatched, or even transferred, and, to top it all off, the first ever special Pikachu, the one wearing a witch's hat. So yeah, it's at a pretty high standard. I remember playing during it, and my favorite feature was, and still is to this day, the double candy per transfer. Fucking brilliant. Niantic George is a Niantic employee and, along with Niantic Indigo, joined the r/the Silph Road to gather information and provide help to multiple people in the community when it was needed. About a week after Pokemon GO's release, 2 men from California fell off a cliff after crossing into a restricted area because they were searching for Pokemon. One of them fell about 50 feet down, whilst the other fell almost double that, but they both were rescued by firefighters and only suffered moderate injuries. Thank God. Such a stupid way of almost dying, like bro. That closed area wasn't a fucking nest full of Dragonite or Gyarados, like the one in How to Train Your Dragon. You can find Pokemon everywhere, and you guys decided to cross a fence in a restricted area to do so. We're fucking doomed as a society. When Pokemon GO first came out, it had a different visual version of the Pokeball we know today. It had a thicker black line in the center, making the upper red side more prominent when you look at it. Mega Nests are basically just simple and plain nests, but they offer Pokemon which are capable of Mega Evolutions, so they are more sought after, sometimes by trainers. In 2018, Pokemon GO had the Safari Zone event in Dortmund. If you've never played the main games, the Safari Zone was a place where you'd get a set number of Pokeballs and you could catch as many Pokemon as you wanted, but you couldn't battle them. You could throw mud at them or treats and then try to catch them. It was basically the first instance of something similar to Pokemon GO we've ever experienced in the franchise, so it totally made sense for them to do an event surrounding it. They made multiple ones, but in the Dortmund one the increased spawn chances were for Pikachu, Aerodactyl, 7 different types of unknown, Corsola, Phanpy, Larvitar, Wurmple, Swablu, and a shiny version for each, plus Roselia and its shiny version, which was a new shiny Pokemon introduced for the event at that time. In the old gym system, some trainers were confused when they reached an allied gym, meaning it was occupied by trainers of the same team as that said player, but instead of getting an option to place a Pokemon in the gym, they got one to battle it, and they were confused and thought it was a glitch. It actually wasn't, because they had to fight in order to increase the gym's prestige, so a new spot of the maximum 10 would open up. This is a very ingenious tool. It is a fan-made device which you just strap on your wrist and it basically works just like a Poké Plus, just a more complex version of it. It also times the time, so it is kind of in the same price range as the Poké Plus, but it's forbidden by the TOS at the same time, so I don't understand why you would use it instead of a Poké Plus. Maybe you just hate big corporations and do not want to give them money, which is pretty valid reasoning, to be honest. If you want to check up on your Yanma friend in your Pokemon bag, you might encounter this glitch, which makes them basically be frozen mid-air, its wings being just stood there unfazed, not flapping. The white screen of death refers to a certain situation when players are just faced with the white screen, not freezing their game totally, just incapacitating their ways of playing the game. Sometimes would happen when you boot up the game, or when you try to catch Pokemon, or when all of your Pokemon faint during a raid. It can be caused by multiple factors, the app's own glitches and bugs, device compatibility, like maybe you're playing on an actual break, or connection issues. You can restart the app to get rid of it, and if it keeps on happening, you can try different ways of trying to prevent it from occurring, like restarting your phone or clearing the cache from the app and also reinstalling it. And there used to be a glitch back in 2017 which almost prevented people from catching a Pokemon during a raid with their last Premier Ball. The glitch consisted of you using your last Premier Ball available to try and catch the raid Pokemon, and it instantly escaped after only half a shake if you wouldn't hit a critical catch. So basically, you'd have one chance less every time you try to catch a reward Pokemon. Thankfully, it was fixed pretty quickly. There are certain smaller regions, in this case New Zealand, to test and try out new game features, receive feedback on them, and maybe identify issues regarding said updates before implementing them on a global scale. I assume that it's the same as the Pokemon walking off the screen, but this time it's just a trainer that decides to adventure on its own. There are a ton of Pokemon Go knockoffs. There are certain ones which are so much on the nose, like Draconios Go, some funny ones like Monster Ball, and some which are other franchises that just wanted a piece of the cake baked by Niantic, like Jurassic Park, Ghostbusters, fucking Garfield, and even The Walking Dead to a certain level. There is this insanely talented and devoted trainer in Pokemon Go who managed to get to the maximum level at that time, level 40, without joining any team. This is basically the Nuzlocke equivalent of Pokemon Go, but on crack. It's insanely impressive, and I'm sure after he managed to do it and post about it on Reddit, you should definitely go and check the whole post out for yourselves. Others followed in his footsteps. We're now done with the other longest layer of the iceberg, and we're getting ready to face other amazing and interesting entries as we've now reached the 5th layer and halfway mark of this massive iceberg. But before we go on with it, I'd want to ask y'all to leave a like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video so far, and let me know in the comments below what you think of the iceberg thus far. Do you enjoy the entries? Do you have stuff to add that I might have missed? How many of them did you know before, and which ones surprised you? I'd love to hear y'all input on all of those questions in the comments below. Now, let's get back to it. The trading and PvP features in Pokemon Go were released in June and December of 2018. Niantic initially planned for them to be released at an earlier date, but multiple complications, including server issues, made it more complicated for the developers and made them take longer to add them. Well, at the end of the day, at least we got them. Back in 2016, at a rally, the presidential candidate at that time, Hillary Clinton, made a reference to Pokemon Go.
Creating new apps. I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
When you encounter a Nosepass in the wild, you'll maybe notice the fact that it always faces north. If you press on it to catch it, Nosepass will face you, but besides that, anytime you encounter one in the wild, it'll face north. Once Niantic responded to a complaint using just the letter R, basically leaving them on red. There sometimes are glitches and Pokemon in the wild spawn on top of each other. Here are some examples of that. Niantic likes to hide stuff in the posters for their events, like for example Zygarde in the GoFest 2022 poster. The late Satoru Iwata was the president of Nintendo for more than a decade, from 2002 to 2015, when he unfortunately passed away due to complications regarding a tumor. It's believed that one of his final projects, if not the final one, was Pokemon Go. He oversaw the development of it and wanted to push the franchise towards the mobile market. The Lake Trio, or the Lake Guardians as they are also known, are the legendary Pokemon Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf. In Pokemon Go, you had to participate in raids when they came out in order to have a chance at capturing them, but some trainers have actually managed to find them in the wild. It's incredibly rare, but there is a chance for them to spawn near bodies of water. It also depends on the region you're in. Uxie could be found in the wild only in the Asia Pacific region, Mesprit only in Europe, the Middle East and Africa, and Azov in both Americas. This entry refers to the subreddit based on the former site with the same name, the Silk Road, and it refers to the fact that it's a subreddit made for quality assurance, where the developers get feedback on the updates and general state of the game, on the bugs that are currently inconveniencing players, and try to connect to the community to make the whole Pokemon GO ecosystem better. On April Fool's Day in 2018, Niantic changed all the icons for Pokemon to the original 8-bit ones we all know and love. All the ones in your bag and your nearby section turned to these cute little pixelations. Even though it was only a joke, a ton of trainers fell in love quickly with this feature and would have wished for it to be available in the settings as a permanent one. And I couldn't agree more. It just fits the vibe of a Pokemon game on the mobile device more than the 3D ones, in my opinion, plus it's also nostalgic as fuck at the same time. The fast catch glitch is still in the game to this day and it's still really useful. It makes you skip the catch animation so you can catch more Pokemon in a quick amount of time. You basically drag a little bit the Pokeball section in the bottom right corner and then you just throw a Pokeball normally with another finger as you're still holding the selection down. After you throw the ball and hit the Pokemon, you can let go of the other finger and be able to exit the scene as you do normally by pressing the button in the top left. I'll show you a little bit of a demonstration by YouTuber PokeGirl7.
You're going to use one thumb and hold down that button until it looks like you're stretching it out kind of. If you let go, the thing opens up, but if you just hold onto it and stretch that button just a little bit, it just stays like that. And then use your other thumb and touch on the Pokeball here and throw like that. And then if you just go up here and run, that Pokemon should be in my inventory. And it is.
During Pokemon GO's anniversary in 2018, they released multiple party hat-wearing Pokemon, one of which was also a Pichu. People were trying desperately to get its shiny form because it was pretty rare for a variety of factors. It was only obtainable during the limited time event, so that put time limit on how long it is obtainable, which is only obtainable through 2km eggs. The 2km egg has multiple Pokemon you could get, so after being lucky enough to get a Pichu, you'd also have to be lucky enough for it to be shiny. I think at the time the chance for a shiny Pichu was 1 in 50, so yeah. You need a Lady Luck on your side to obtain this limited time Pokemon. In response to the pandemic, Niantic increased the interaction radius so that it could make the game easier to play whilst you follow social distancing guidelines. The interaction radius refers to that pulsating circle around the player that lets you know if you're close enough to a gym or Pokestop or Pokemon in order to interact with them. In August 2021, they decided to revert the change and scale back the radius to its initial size due to updated regulations and the whole COVID situation fortunately cooling down and more regulations being lifted up. In response to that, a ton of fans went to social media to express their outrage and how the new radius was far better than the original for multiple reasons, like limited access to Pokestops or players who are playing the game in more remote locations. In the end, Niantic actually listened to the feedback and outrage from the public, plus a couple of petitions, and decided to not revert the change, leaving the extended radius permanent. Darumaka and Doduo are off-center in the catch screen. The reason for Darumaka's different positioning is the fact that Darumaka's name comes from two Japanese words, Daruma and Maka. Daruma are circular dolls that represent body armor, and Maka means bright red. Kids in Japan play a version of the red light green light game, Squid Game reference, called Daruma-san ga Korona, and it translates to the Daruma doll fell over, and that is why the Pokemon spawns are off-center, both on their feet and on the screen. Thank you, Mr. Electron on Reddit, for the beautiful explanation. And for Doduo, I don't know, no clear explanation. Maybe the developers just wanted us to target the right head of the Pokemon as the catching circle is right on it, and placing the Pokemon in the center would have placed the circle between the two heads and make the catching of it more awkward. The dodge glitch in Pokemon GO was an issue where players would attempt to dodge an enemy's attack during a raid or gym battle, and the dodge wouldn't work. The game just wouldn't register it properly, and the player would end up taking damage. I've had it happen sometimes to me, and I can confirm it's really fucking annoying, especially in important and difficult raids. There was a glitch in 2017 where Candela, the leader of Team Valor, appeared instead of Spark, the leader of Team Instinct, when you go to appraise a Pokemon, and people took to the internet, especially Reddit, to meme this bug by saying that he went missing. Niantic quickly solved the issue. Moving grass, or rustling leaves as it's also known, are these floating leaves that used to appear sometimes at random, and they indicated a higher chance of a Pokemon spawning there. If you tapped on them, you might interact and begin an encounter with a wild Pokemon. In 2021, Pokemon introduced a new shirt for a trainer, a Slowpoke inspired shirt, but they didn't make it quite right and it inspired something else. I've just seen someone on Reddit call it a Blowpoke. There is this fan, theory and meme that Niantic is Team Rocket. First, because Team Rocket uses hot air balloons, that being also the logo of Niantic, and for their ways of object certifying Pokemon as a source of making money, because in Pokemon GO, as you all know by now, there are a ton of regional exclusives, which you need to catch in order to complete regional medals fully and to match the motto, gotta catch 'em all. Those regional exclusives can be obtained either by going on a trip to that certain country to get those Pokemon, or pay ticket passes for in-game events where those Pokemon become globally obtainable. When Melton was revealed and added, people who hadn't reopened the game would have instead encountered the Pokemon that the developers coded in as the placement for Melton before introducing it. In this case, it was Kecleon, so those people, instead of encountering the newly introduced Melton, were faced with everyone's favorite Slick Chameleon. There is this glitch that seems to still be happening to this day that simply just blocks your Pokeball mid-air. It just gets stuck there when you're throwing it to catch Pokemon. Some people have said that it has happened to them not only with wild Pokemon, but with raid ones as well, and I can just imagine that it's the most off-putting thing when you're playing the game. It literally prevents you from doing the most basic action of any Pokemon media, the action of catching a Pokemon. There was yet another glitch. Holy shit, this level is full of them. I'm turning into a sports center. This one is in regards to the AR feature. Some players encountered an issue when turning it on when trying to catch a Pokemon. By the title you might think it flipped its camera and the Pokemon might have looked as if it were standing on thin air, touching the sky, but no, it's the opposite. It keeps the camera in its correct direction, but it rotates the Pokemon, making them look as if they're relatives of Dracula. In April 2022, Pokemon GO introduced Mega Evolution legendary Pokemon as part of the game, with the likes of Latios, Latias and Gengar being the first to join the game. With the addition of those Mega Evolution legendaries, they've also added 6 star raids that contain, you've guessed it, Mega Legendary Pokemon. A Mega Evolution lasts for 8 hours in Pokemon GO. If during those 8 hours you have that Mega Pokemon as your buddy, then any Pokemon of that species you'll catch will give you extra candy. In the main games, Weather Ball is a move fixated on the weather. In Pokemon GO, it is fixated on the Pokemon's type. A couple of years ago, Primeape accidentally was allowed by the devs to learn the water version of the Weather Ball because, as obviously as it sounds, no type of weather signifies fighting, so they had to remove it and gave the players who had it learned on their Primeapes some form of compensation, either by replacing it with Ice Punch or Close Combat. If Ice Punch was already unlocked as a second charged attack, then the players were granted 50k Stardust, which was really nice. That would come in handy for a ton of trainers. I think this is just a myth. IVs do not affect the Pokemon's catch rate. Maybe some people were really unlucky with catching strong Pokemon and then they were disappointed when they saw that the Pokemon's IVs did not match their expectations and made the connection that because a certain Pokemon is weaker on that part, it will make it harder to catch. We've now passed the halfway mark and nothing is holding us back anymore as we dig in deeper and start the next layer. During GoFest 2020, Niantic wanted to release a special puzzle for the community, but the idea failed. Instead, they decided to cosplay as the Riddler and deliver trainers multiple questions on their Twitter page, 13 in total. If you got the correct answer for every question and put together the initial of every response, you'd get a code which you could input in order to receive a reward. Being an Alolan Pokemon, Marowak is pretty rare to obtain. Fortunately, during special events, Niantic includes this little guy in 3-star raids. It also received the raid day, meaning it would appear way more often in raids for a day, on Halloween in 2020. Pokemon GO fans have always been intrigued in regards to the gender of the Mystic's leader, Blanche, because Niantic always avoided using pronouns when talking about the leader, until one day in 2019 when it referred to Blanche as their, revealing to the fans that they are non-binary, giving the fans representation through a pretty beloved character. For the longest time in Pokemon GO, the appraisal button has been the second option when tapping a Pokemon's menu. Well, a couple of years ago, for a bit of time, as the quality of life changed, they moved the button a little higher up and it inconvenienced a ton of people who are used to it being the second choice. They went back on the change though, and it's now in the place it always should have been. When Pokemon blew up a week after its release in 2016, the servers couldn't take the mass amount of players that tried to log in and play the global phenomenon, so the game would give them this error. Our servers are humbled by your incredible response. We are working to resolve the issue. Please try again soon. When Togetic first dropped, it had less than 1% catch rate, some people thinking it was even 0% by the mass amount of balls they wasted on trying to catch it. Some got lucky and got it in only 2 balls, whilst others wasted over 50 Ultra Balls to catch one, whilst others couldn't even catch it without hitting a critical catch because it would just flee away. Fortunately, not long after its release, the devs realized the problem and increased its rate to 5%. Lugia was first introduced to Pokemon GO raids in July 2018 during the Pokemon GO Fest event in Chicago. A year later, when Lugia was long gone from being in the Tier 5 legendary eggs, it briefly made an appearance alongside Latios and Latias, and people thought Niantic had given them a secret gift. But a couple of hours after people noticed Lugia popping out of the eggs, the developers took it out of the game, proving that the addition of Lugia was a mistake, and only Latias and Latios were meant for release at that time. In late July 2016, less than a month after the game's release, there were only the original 151 Pokemon, minus the legendary, until an Articuno was spotted atop a gym in Ohio. The trainer who possessed the Articuno in question said that after contacting Niantic about an issue, they apologized and gave them this Articuno. If giving the first ever Articuno to a trainer as part of an apology sounds wrong to you, then you'd be correct. A couple of weeks later, a studio representative at Niantic released a statement about the matter in question, the statement being, "We recently noticed that a few legendary Pokemon got into a few accounts when they shouldn't have. To preserve the game's integrity and as a measure of fairness, we have rectified the situation and revoked the legendary Pokemon from the trainers' accounts." A couple of years ago, Pokemon GO had an event regarding everyone's favorite little dragon, leading as the frontrunner. Saying it went horrible would be an understatement, because everyone was not getting a single one from the 7-kilometer eggs that were supposed to have Dano in them. A group of players called the Self Research Group had an experiment to try to narrow down Dano's hatch rate, and it was so bad it was almost 0%. And to top it all off, the shiny wasn't even in the game for the first 3 days of the event. It was an absolute mess. The original 2016 holiday loading screen was a bit too curvy for a kids video game. They then switched it up to a less provocative depiction of a trainer. There was a glitch regarding Ho-Oh's name being deemed inappropriate. If you were to put a nickname on your Ho-Oh, then when to put the Pokemon's name back, the game wouldn't allow you and call the literal name of the Pokemon inappropriate. Great job, developers! In 2021, Niantic added a white flash when tapping on a wild Pokemon, something to make it more atmospheric in some sort of way, I guess. Maybe they did it to make it more visually appealing, or harmless update that would make it look cooler than they thought. No bad intentions, of course. Well, that bright flash was not the best idea, because it could have induced seizures in players with epilepsy. What got it all kicked off and prompted Niantic to revert the change was a player with epilepsy taking it to social media to state that he was getting sick from the excessive white flashes after each wild Pokemon they captured. The only thing I could find in regards to silent audio affecting a person was that it takes over your headphones priority if you are listening to music or a podcast or something, and the Pokemon spawns or you flip a Pokestop or other type of muting and notifications having issues with one another, but nothing in regards to hearing aids. I'm sorry, if anyone knows in detail what this entry is talking about, please let me know in the comments below. There have been so many bugs over the years with the Pokemon Trainer Club, it's so fucking exhausting. I am one of the poor people who have their Pokemon GO account made with the Pokemon Trainer Club one, and over the years there have been multiple issues I and many other players have experienced, like getting randomly logged out, not being able to log in, the game telling you there's an issue and the Pokemon Trainer Club is unavailable at that time. Like, what you mean it's unavailable? I just put in a name and a password to access Pokemon GO. What you mean it's unavailable? I'm not using the site, I'm using it to log into the game. I even think I had to change my password one time because logging in just wasn't working. Fucking nightmare. In a Wired interview from 2017, we could see John Hank, the CEO of Niantic, holding up a phone with his Pokemon GO trainer account. We spot the fact that his trainer's name is Ace, that he's level 19, and that he has a Tentacruel as his body. Weirdly wholesome, not gonna lie. A short time after the game's release, people reported to be encountering an issue that made their game just simply crash. The issue in question regarded the Pokemon Grimer. If you hatched a Grimer from an egg, the game would simply just crash, and every time you go to that Pokemon's page in order to take a look at it, the game would crash once again. The community day involving Slakoth in June 2019 in Europe was a disaster because the Pokemon spawns were all over the place, but not in a good way, because there were very few Slakoth spawns and in a very short time span in comparison to the whole community day, and by it being the face and primary focus of that event, it was pretty shit. Niantic acknowledged the issue and re-released the event for Europe about a month later. As with the overlapping Pokemon issues that occur sometimes in the wild, the issue seems to persist with Pokemon even when they are placed as defenders for gyms. Salamina Island is a Greek island that faced an issue in Pokemon GO for the better part of 2019. There was a problem and the island had over 7 months without a single Pokemon spawn before Niantic fixed the issue. Bros give us the fucking heroes and we treat them this way. Really shitty on your behalf, Niantic. Pokemon Sunrise and Sunset are fan-made Pokemon games in the making. A demo version of them was released a couple of years ago and they presented beautifully crafted sprites and cutscenes alongside multiple game mechanics to differentiate from the main series games. There used to be a glitch with Rhyperiors at gyms, where if you placed the Rhyperior as a defender, it would be shrunk down and look really fun in comparison to the other Pokemon present there. We're now going in for the last normally colored layered, as the final 3 all have red text. Really spooky. I mentioned them when I talked about the boosted shinies entry, In the second layer, there are certain Pokemon that have a permanent shiny boost, in comparison to others whose shiny boost changes over time. The Adventure Sync feature is the best thing they've added to the game in my opinion. It lets you get your kilometers in for your eggs and body Pokemon without having to open the app. Every week you'll get rewarded for how many kilometers you put in. The rewards are on 3 different tiers, one for 5 kilometers, one for 25 and the last one for 50. If you have available spots in your inventory and you complete the final tier, you'll be rewarded with a 5 kilometer egg and a 10 kilometer egg, both having different Pokemon in them from your ordinary respective eggs. The 5 kilometer one contains Cranidos, Shieldon, Happiny, Munchlax and Shinx, whilst the 10 kilometer one has Gumi, Bagon, Beldum, Gible, Riolu, Rockruff and Dano. This refers to the fact that when you reach level 50, which as I've told you before is the level cap for your trainer, a part of your reward is 5 lucky eggs. Like, what does Niantic think you'll do with them? You cannot level up anymore, and if we're going by the same pattern with the increasing level cap, then it will take a bit of time before they up it up again. This shows that they don't really care about reaching milestones, otherwise they would have given the players better rewards and not stuff you genuinely don't have any benefit in using after reaching the maximum level. Water in Pokemon GO used to look pretty dull, but Niantic changed it, adding a tiny bit of texture to it. There used to be a glitch in Pokemon GO back in 2016, either a glitch or massive Mandela effect from all the community gaslighting itself, of the first Pokeball you throw just blasting off like Team Rocket far away into the background. It's either because it was everyone's first throw and they didn't have the momentum of multiple throws before, or it was genuinely an issue where the first Pokeball was coded wrongly and it made it way easier to throw that aiming it as a usual throw just sent it flying far away. Lapras had suffered a pretty immense nerf back in 2017 in order to balance the game more since it was really strong. The problem with the nerf is that the way they made it was by taking away from 300 to 500 CP from everyone's Lapras without giving the players any compensation, which was very shitty on behalf of the developers. They should have at least given them some Stardust or rare candies or something. 500 CP, especially back in the day, was a pretty enormous amount. In July 2016, there was a massive horde of hundreds of people that rushed into Central Park after a trainer announced that a wild Vaporeon had spawned there. I said it in the beginning and I'll say it again, no other mobile game has had a grip on society as Pokemon GO did for that 1 week in July 2016. S2 cells are basically used to represent Earth's 3D sphere shape in 2D. That's what I got from the whole definition. Guys, I don't want to do fucking mathematics and geometry while playing Pokemon GO. That's fucking nightmare. It's basically used to pinpoint locations where you'd find better Pokemon, more Pokestops, more gyms, and all of that shit that you'd want to find. I'll leave the link to the article in the description for you to go down the rabbit hole yourselves, cause my head is already spinning from it all. There was a time in Pokemon GO where Chinchou was found in 10 km X, which was rather weird, because it's not the most popular Pokemon or the rarest, and as the 10 km eggs were the highest type of eggs featuring the most sought after Pokemon like Dratini, Lapras and Snorlax, it would feel pretty underwhelming to receive this little guy from them. Afterwards, the little guy was also added to 5 km eggs, and with time it fortunately was removed from the 10 km one and only kept in the other. You can trick the game into glitching you into landscape mode. In order to do this, you have to hold your phone horizontally, go to the settings and report a high priority issue. When you tap that, Pokemon GO will open a browser in order for you to report the issue on their site. But instantly as you're taken there, before the site even loads up, you have to tap your home screen button and then go and tap on the Pokemon GO app. It will load you into the game instead of the page and you'll be playing in landscape mode. A pretty cool trick that, as many others, should become actual features. I've been searching for an answer for this entry for over half an hour on Google, Reddit and even fucking ChatGPT. The only thing that I found was regarding Scarlet and Violet, where there would be a sandstorm in a gym battle, but no visible one, and I presume the issue here is that sandstorms just appear randomly during gym battles in Pokemon GO as well, but I couldn't find any concrete answers, so please let me know in the comments what this entry talks about. There is an item on Starbucks' secret menu that is dubbed the Pokemon GO Frappuccino. It resembles Mewtwo and it's made with a vanilla frappuccino, raspberry syrup and freeze-dried blackberries. It looks really appetizing, that's if you can get past the probable $10 price mark. Armored Mewtwo was introduced in the 2019 Netflix movie, and since then it has made an appearance in Pokemon GO as a Mewtwo variant. You could obtain it during raids, and it would appear bound by its armor on top of the gyms until it was successfully defeated by players. r/Pokemon Circle Jerk used to be a subreddit where people memed Pokemon games and the franchise in general, but the owner shut it off after a long time of being with the subreddit and the lack of community. r/Pokemon GO Circle Jerk, on the other hand, is a subreddit that still gets posts from time to time, where people like to talk about Pokemon GO and maybe meme the game a little bit, especially Pinsir. A streamer by the name of Mike Nerdlaw started a meme years ago about the cowboy hat wearing Caterpie, and under every post from Niantic he begged them to add this to the game. People caught wind of the whole situation and jumped in as well, asking Niantic to add a special Caterpie since a ton of Pokemon have different event variants. Pikachu has at least 20 I think, so it genuinely shouldn't be a problem. And this fall, the perfect occasion for that meme to become true had a reason. Pokemon GO was celebrating the release of the sequel to the Detective Pikachu game, not the movie yet, just the game, and in order to do that, they had an in-game event where multiple Pokemon were wearing detective hats. They unfortunately did not give our boy Caterpie a hat. Shame on you. It was the first Pokemon to be caught in the wild by Ash in the anime. It should get the special treatment of at least getting a fucking cowboy hat wearing variant. If the difference between a normal and shiny Zapdos isn't bad enough, the developers couldn't even tell them apart when Pokemon GO released Zapdos. It accidentally did it with the shiny sprite instead, so they had to go back and switch it up to what it should have looked like. In 2021, during the annual Go Fest celebration, the people at Pokemon designed a giant 50-foot tall egg, which they've placed in Chicago, the birthplace of the Pokemon Go Fest event, in order to give the players an immersive raid experience. It genuinely looks stunning. Pokemon have appeared in a bunch of wild places, but one that might just top them all was a strip club. Someone caught a PG at a strip club. I don't think I can show the photo, though, in this family-friendly Pokemon GO Iceberg. This refers to a theory that the shiny odds in-game are influenced by a ton of factors. Like, for example, each player himself has different chances than the other, the Pokemon spawn itself, the ID of the Pokemon and the trainer itself, combining to create a unique ID. On the 1st of March 2020, there was a raid event where you could catch special party hat wearing Nidorino and Gengar, due to the fact that at the time COVID cases started springing up in numbers across the whole world, and because of that, certain regions of the world, like Italy, had the event cancelled and Niantic never made up for it. Certain countries in the same geographical region, like Malta, also had the event cancelled for them, even though they had no cases, as stated by Mr. Joseph on Reddit. The Victory Memorial Drive in Minneapolis is an almost 4-mile-long neighborhood where a couple of years ago, at the request of the local residents, a ton of gyms and Pokestops were removed since they weren't the biggest fans of traffic caused by the mobile game. It sounds so silly when you think about it. Like, I can't believe they just shut down a ton of in-game Pokestops because the people living there were not comfortable with people hunting for Pokemon. Why did they have the power to do that? And why did they think that the boost in traffic and noise that was annoying them from all the cars and people passing by was because of a vast majority of them were playing Pokemon? It just doesn't seem like sound logic. We've now reached the end of level 7 and are now heading into red text territory. Let's go! There's a very detailed post on Reddit from user STSSSP that goes in detail in regards to this whole event. It basically took place in November of 2016 in the Tohoku area in Japan, an area which was heavily damaged by a large earthquake back in 2011. The event's primary focus was Lapras. Froakie was so hardly obtainable when it first came out that a bunch of trainers, after using several instance and lure models, were convinced it doesn't exist in the game. In September 2020, Niantic's support account accidentally quote-tweeted a tweet regarding the death of a pretty important feminist icon with just the word fuck. They deleted the tweet immediately, but some people still managed to see it. It all just probably was a mistake, and the person working behind the account didn't realize he wasn't on his personal one when he made that tweet. Mistakes happen, and hopefully no one was fired because of this little incident. The bubble strat was a strategy that was used to increase a gym's prestige and gain XP really fast without using resources. You had to use low CP Pokemon between 10 and 20, and the higher CP one needs to know bubble because it's the slowest attack. And your lower CP Pokemon need to have quicker attacks like Paras, Bug Bite, for example. You need to find an open gym and place your 20 CP Horsey there. You'll then fight it in order to increase its prestige, and because you're fighting a higher CP than yours, you get more prestige points, more than 500 per attack. The trick is that because Horsey's move takes longer than yours to work, you won't take damage from it, and you'll keep beating that gym to increase its prestige over and over again without having to consume any of your heal resources on your Pokemon. It's a truly ingenious strategy. Typically, in 10km eggs, you get either basic Pokemon like Riolo or Larvitar, or Pokemon that were supposed to be initially basic, but got other stages along the time, like Chansey. But they also have to be rare and hard to find, like Lapras, so pretty much a combination of these three factors. Imagine the surprise the trainer got when they got Luxio in their 10km egg, a stage 1 Pokemon evolution of a Pokemon that in the main franchise you could find in the first route of their specific game. So yeah, it had to be a glitch, surely. There was an entry in level 4 called Last Ball Used Memory Glitch, and I thought it referred to this thing that the last Premier Ball basically had a 0% success rate, but apparently it was something else, which I cannot find for the life of me. All the last ball glitches that I find are in regards to the Premier Ball, so yeah, let me know in the comments below if you have any clue. When Shiny Croagunk was released in April 2020, people were finding it harder than other shinies. A user on Reddit stated that he was in a close-knit community of around 900 Pokemon GO players, and every time a shiny was released, it would usually be caught by a couple of people in the first 2 days of its release. But with Croagunk, stuff was not like that. No one caught one. Then when he went to a bigger Facebook page with more than 35,000 members playing the online sensation, still no one appeared to have caught the shiny little frog, prompting the user to think that there was an issue with its arrival to the game. Some people in the comments suggested that this instance only happened because of the pandemic, since a ton of people were in lockdown and wanted to distance themselves from the outside. There was a Reddit post made in 2019 in regards to the upcoming Go Fest 2019 in Dortmund. The person who made the post outed the poor and inconsiderate customer support at Niantic. It all began when his older brother, called Eric in this post for privacy reasons, got his invitation request accepted by Niantic for the event. He was very happy about it, and their family brought him a ticket. The thing is, he's autistic, so the eldest brother in the family was his caretaker, so he needed to go with him to take care of him, especially in an event of that size. When the original poster sent an email to Niantic to ask them if the eldest brother could go in with Eric for free because he didn't play Pokemon GO, he only wanted to be there to take care of Eric, Niantic rejected the request by saying that he had to get a ticket, which prompted the poster to send another email, but still, he got rejected again. And then he went to Reddit to express his very valid frustrations. The post blew up in the Pokemon GO subreddit, and Niantic Indigo wrote a response saying that they're all sorry for the way their agent handled the situation, which is even worse because just by looking at the responses from Niantic, you'd think they were written by a robot. So for them to be written by a person is actually much worse. They made sure that Eric could be taken by the brother free of cost, and they also offered him a ticket if he wanted to play the game as well. Such a shitty situation, but it fortunately got solved and Eric got to go to the event. This iceberg is not the latest, it's a few years old, 2 or 3, so at the time the Master Ball was not a thing in the game, and by trying to find what this entry was referring to, after all the posts and videos talking about Master Balls after their official release, would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. And after about half an hour of looking for that needle, I can't seem to make any progress. If I had to guess, it referred to a possibility of it being added, or the professor mentioning it once, or something along the lines of that, or a glitch with the Pokeball, something. Some years back, there was a glitch with people seeing substitutes on top of gyms instead of Pokemon. It apparently happened when respective Pokemon failed to load, the substitute being coded in the files for when stuff like that happens. They honestly made the best choice for scenarios like that, putting a substitute in to substitute for the failed to load models. In August 2016, a Reddit user posted about spotting in his bag a second infinite incubator. It later turned out to be a glitch, but players have always wanted to get a second infinite incubator. Another user suggested you'd get one for hitting trainer level milestones, but to this day, almost 8 years after the release of the game, we still haven't received a second infinite one. Even though in the main games Blaziken can learn Bulldoze, in Pokemon GO it couldn't. It only happened for a couple of minutes when Gen 3 got released, but it got fixed. But then another glitch with Stone Edge on Blaziken happened that took about 2 days to be taken away. It was found within the game files that there were 4 unused berry images designed. We don't know what the developers had in mind, or if they were basic designs for already existent berries, or if they were totally different ones that got scrapped, but someone on Reddit decided to do a fan-made description for each of them, and it seems really nice. A couple of years ago, they made some tiny Pokemon bigger and some larger Pokemon smaller, like Nut for example and Onix. Not every Pokemon has a shiny version released in Pokemon GO, but Ditto has one, and by using Ditto to transform into that other Pokemon, because it's shiny, it will transform into that other Pokemon's shiny version, in some cases even if it's not released in the game, just by being in the files. But that's only in some certain cases, as stated by a user on Reddit that said his shiny Ditto just simply transformed into a glowing orb. Michael Baker went for a convenience store trip at 1 in the morning to get chips, beer and play some Pokemon GO along the way. His path intertwined with the one of another man who stopped him after Michael asked him if he was also playing Pokemon GO. I saw him go by and ask if he was playing Pokemon GO. He was like, what? I guess he wanted to battle because he came up at me with a knife. Dude's also a jokester, props to him. Even though he got stabbed, he still pursued his mission, and was not in the mood for any side quests. And when he arrived at the store, a witness there saw his injury and called the police. During the first day of Go Fest 2019 in Chicago, there were many glitches, but one of those, in favor of the trainers, was the accidental release of Shiny Abra. It was patched later by Niantic saying it was a mistake, but a ton of people, myself included, thought that they should have just run with it and leave it in the game. This is a creepy fan theory, as that suggests. Professor Willow uses the Pokemon you transfer to him to turn them into candy to give to you. The ticket for the Colossal Discovery event gave players a trainer pose that for some people got glitched and gave them this weird scoliosis-ass contorted back. There was a bug in 2016 with Polygraph, where the JPEG used for its belly was very poor quality, making it look cursed. You'll mostly encounter water Pokemon in bodies of water, but sometimes it feels like the spawns are completely random, with no indication if a Pokemon should spawn there or not. The weather can be a factor in deciding a Pokemon spawn, but in regards to deep water, you should mostly find Pokemon within the likes of Magikarp, Horsey, Seeking, and Tentacool. Team Rocket represents a parody of the real-life mafia and criminal organizations led by rich people in America. Niantic says that they only use our location information to provide an in-game experience tied to a real-world location, and that they do not sell our data. But you still don't know what happens. They also share anonymous data with third parties for analysis, so you never know what will happen. You never know what analysis means. There's this Dragon Ball Z meme where Vegeta exclaims it's over 9000 when referring to a high power level, and I guess Reggie Gas became the subject of that meme because of its high power level. We've now reached our second to last level, and we've never been so close to finishing this immense iceberg, so let's hop in and keep going. During the Pokemon Go Fest 2019 in Dortmund, there was a glitch with some Tier 1 raids, and instead of Magnemite, the Pokemon who hatched from the eggs was Magnezone. This gave the players a huge advantage, especially because Magnezone needed 100 candies plus a magnetic lure to evolve, so it being in the easiest raids would have been such an easy way of obtaining it that gathering candies would have made no sense. Niantic quickly solved the issue. Dark Void is a very powerful move in the Pokemon franchise. It acts like a hypnosis, but with higher accuracy. When it originally came out, it had 8% accuracy, which is mental for a move that basically incapacitates the enemy. That being a reason why it was banned in competitive Pokemon, and it was not added to Pokemon Go originally. It was only found in the game files, but with time, several times it was found on shiny Darkrai, so it's possible for it to return during Halloween events when Darkrai comes back. Disembodied trainer heads have been appearing for a long time in Pokemon Go. Dating back to at least 2019, it happened multiple times over the years, and it's probably a wrongly placed asset that gets glitched. There was a period of over a month back in 2019 when Paras was just gone from the spawn pool. No one seemed to find one in the wild, and it even sparked up this funny conversation posted on Twitter. There's this glitch that covers your trainer's face in the bottom left with the texture from your active body. It involves putting on glasses on your trainer, then fucking a bit with the badge list and re-entering the app. I highly suggest you go and check out for yourself this Reddit thread to understand completely what they're talking about and give them some praise for writing this whole thread in regards to it. For now, here are a couple of examples of said glitch. Love is love is a slogan that supports diversity and equality, especially within the LGBTQ+ community. In 2016, one trainer using a Clefairy, nicknamed Love is Love, took control of a gym that was located at a Baptist church to basically mock the homophobia within religion, I assume. Missing No is probably the most infamous glitch in the Pokemon franchise. It is a glitched Pokemon made up of programming errors. Some players have encountered this glitched monster in Pokemon Go as well. This is such a creative way of robbing someone. There are people who are placing lures in the night on Pokestops that were either close to dark alleys or in the dark alleys themselves, and waited for Pokemon players to come by and then rob them. This is the real life Team Rocket, holy shit. You've got to give them props for thinking of this shit. Again, regarding the Pokemon Go Circle Jerk subreddit, the people there divinize Pinsir in some way and make jokes about it. This refers to Pokemon Go's decline in popularity over time and how Niantic did nothing wrong to impact it, which probably is just sarcasm, and this entry actually refers to the fact that Niantic did multiple things to impact the game's decline. The one thing you can't hold them to blame for is that a ton of players just got bored of the premise of the game after all this time. They can't reshape it. One large mistake that a ton of companies make is not listening to the fans and player feedback, which is just so stupid when you think about it. If a mass of players that enjoy your game and spend tons of hours grinding on it say that something is wrong and that you should look into doing that something differently, and they also give you examples and ideas, but you still don't want to listen to any of it, then that's just a clear example of stubborn developers that think they know better and they know what's best for the game, even when in some cases they clearly don't. If your mobile device has gyroscope capabilities, which a lot of them should do, you can set the compass in the top right to point you in the direction of the closest wild Pokemon. The creator of the Silph Road is a self-proclaimed Dr. Pepper addict. At the owner's request, Pokemon Go will remove the Pokestops placed in graveyards and even schools and churches, and it makes sense to do so because certain people, especially in graveyards, don't want trainers to come searching for Pokemon there during the day, or worse, during the night. Scooby-Doo-esque activity. Been researching this entry for a bit of time now, and the only thing I could find was either an article on how astronauts can play Pokemon Go, the fast catch glitch discussed earlier, or an auto catch glitch with the Pokemon Go Plus device. I give up. A trainer got his account wrongfully striked, but then Niantic compensated him with a free event box in the shop. With pretty great loot, if you ask me. This entry could also tie into the fact that all the boxes are basically the same and Niantic just changes their name between events and such and moves the items from one another. When Shadow Turtwig was introduced, there was a bug that made it appear as the icon for a normal Turtwig in the nearby section. Just like with the pig in the strip club, only this one is 100 times worse. Someone found the coughing, the fucking gas Pokemon, in a Holocaust museum. Like, you can't make this shit up, man. Like, why did it have to be a coughing? I can't, man. Fucking coughing, man. Any other Pokemon? No, it had to be coughing. Half a year after Pokemon GO's release, the Pokeball throwing physics got changed by Niantic. This change made it way easier for thumb users to throw the balls and made the finger users overthrow the balls quite easily. Reddit user Alboim explained in a thread, with a very nice drawn image if I might add, the way to throw it using the corners in order to get the old physics. This is a very sad entry. A 20-year-old basketball prospect by the name of Calvin Riley was shot dead whilst playing Pokemon GO in San Francisco. That was in 2016, and the last time the subject was touched by the media was in 2021. 5 years after the young man's death, and the killer was still not found, so they probably still haven't found him to this day. Such a sad occurrence, the fact that he just shot dead a 20-year-old is so sad and shows no humanity at all, and the fact that they haven't caught him still is just the cherry on top of this shitty world cake. Rest in peace, Calvin. There was this bug with the magnet zone just turning into a fucking church in the Pokemon bag, like, what the fuck? Like, how the fuck does this happen? How is that coded in? What made that happen? Why a church? Imagine you just open up a Pokemon bag and see a fucking church placed there, like, it's just random equals funny type shit. Before the Nana berries were introduced alongside Gen 2 in Pokemon GO, there was a rumor that the Pester Balls for Pokemon Snap would be added as items to the mobile game. They would have replaced the berries by having the same effect as them, the one of slowing down the movement of wild Pokemon. An American soldier in Iraq played Pokemon GO and caught a Squirtle using the AR mode. People then dubbed it the War Squirtle. We're ending this layer on a fan theory. This one is a huge rabbit hole about the fact that Pokemon GO happens before the events of Red and Blue. This being supported by the fact that the fossils are still wild Pokemon instead of them being, well, just fossils. We've now reached the very last level of this iceberg. No more interlude yapping, let's just get straight to it. There's this Network World article by Brian Landuke that perfectly explains this entry. So, John Hank founded Keyhole Inc. back in 2001. An early backer of this company was a firm called In-Q-Tel, which was a venture capital firm of the CIA. Keyhole developed a product called Earth, and when Google acquired the company in 2004, they renamed it Google Earth. And as we all know, Niantic was founded in 2010 as a company within Google. But what you might have not known is that it was founded by the same John Hank. Even though the company left Google back in 2015 and doesn't use Google Maps to track its players, it still shares anonymous information with third parties for industry and market analysis. As previously stated in a prior entry, you don't know where or how those will be used in terms of industry analysis. There have been plenty of incidents of people finding dead bodies while searching for Pokemon, especially when the game first came out and everyone was playing it. One player found a dead body in a river in Wyoming, another one in a local park in New Hampshire, another player found one in San Diego in another park, and there are more incidents. People found the Super Incubator about a month before its release, and in its original description, it would break after only one use. This cursed text was the name of a field research quest that you'd complete by making an excellent throw, and in return you'd get a Pidgey that would turn into a Ditto. If only field research quests nowadays had rewards that great. This is in regard to Melton and Kecleon entry from earlier, when we had seen Kecleon's model but it was only a Melton, and the fact that the event in question took place in the fall of 2018 and only in the beginning of 2023 we got Kecleon as an official Pokemon is baffling. Almost 5 years later, they released a Pokemon whose model was already coded in the game. What the fuck? There was a meme that Michelle Obama made Pokemon GO because she was very thrilled with the app and its success because her kids and many others were spending time outside because of the game. On April Fool's Day some years ago, Niantic made the joke that the legendary Arceus could be caught on the moon. If you place your Wailord in a gym and then go to check its defender status, Wailord will be missing a big chunk of its head due to not enough space being allocated for it there. Years ago there used to be a bug where a Ditto model would just appear randomly in the background after you caught a Pokemon. People turned it into a creepypasta meme and named it the Wandering Spirit of Ditto. There used to be a glitch that would duplicate your trainer's model, but the other version would just be an immense one that would stand there on the map, menacingly, like a Titan from Attack on Titan. There once was a glitch that added something quite interesting to the description of eggs. It said that you could hatch them by feeding them butter. Was Homer Simpson hiding in the fucking egg? I couldn't find anything. It's probably a push notification or a tweet from Niantic or the Pokemon GO account or just a line randomly thrown away by Grant, but I just cannot find it. When the level cap was increased, the rewards for level 43 were bugged and this text appeared, letter for letter. This means that everything in regards to your trainer is different in odds, kind of like a trainer ID. You'd have better luck at catching shinies or CP in wild Pokemon or in correlation to IVs, everything is just personalized to your account. We're ending this iceberg on a pretty significant and appropriate note for the overall game. The developers released a patch called Minor Text Fixes, where they just changed a couple of achievement names, neglecting the whole fandom that was and still is crying over multiple issues that have been in the game for a long time. As you've seen by now, after I covered this whole iceberg, there have been a ton of entries related to in-game glitches, some that actually even help the trainers, like the fast catch one that let you skip animations, but good thing they started banning players for it a couple of months back, instead of repairing it or making it a feature. So many games are suffering from poor development, especially the ones that have no competitor, like FIFA for example, or this video's focus, Pokemon GO. When you have no one to challenge you to a great extent, you don't evolve as much as you should do. The developers of this mobile game have proved time and time again that they simply just do not care about the community and do something only after they're caught out and exposed for heinous shit, like the GoFest incident with Eric, or they just sit there relaxed, not giving a fuck and release a patch note that just fixed text issues with achievements. A little disclaimer before I end this video, this was not the latest version of the iceberg that this person has made. There's another one with a couple of more entries added to it. I found out about it only after I was down level 5 or 6, so I'm really sorry I did not cover that one instead, but I hope I did a good enough job for y'all out there who have watched this whole hour-long iceberg and have enjoyed every piece of it. I love every single one of you. I still feel a bit bad because for a couple of entries I just couldn't find what the author was referring to. I really tried to do so. I didn't just Google the entry, and if the first website didn't have the answer for it, I would just skip the entry. I actually put work and thought into it. I went to Reddit, Twitter, ChatGPT, Google, everywhere I could possibly think. So I'd love if you'd go over on Reddit and give Monolithic his flowers for putting together this whole iceberg for me and everyone else to explore. It's been quite right, so I should probably stop yapping. This has been LordSill. If you've enjoyed this deep dive and would want to watch me do more of this, then leave a like and subscribe and tell me how you feel now after finding out all these neat secrets regarding the Pokemon GO rabbit hole. And if you're still not sick of me by this point and want to do another deep dive like the mad lad that you are, then I suggest checking out my Scooby-Doo iceberg. Have a great day, guys. Bye!